and we'll start getting underway. Alright. Cool. Kia ora koutou. My name is Dan Moskowitz. I am the news editor at Salient, and I am hosting VUWSA's Regional Council debate, which is what we're here for. Thank you. I'll take polite applause. Regional Council stretches from here to the Wairarapa. We are in the Poneke ward, and we are trying to decide who's going to be representing us. These lovely candidates need your vote, and they're here to advocate for it. Aidan over there needs your money to win for a raffle to win a $50 Prezi card. Oh, there's a free raffle for a $50 Prezi card. Free cake, go buy it. We will be giving candidates 1 minute to answer questions. At 30 seconds, Aspen will ding the bell. Once you're done, once the time's up, they will ding and not stop. And I'll run through the yes-no cards or the I-cow cards, and we'll do that for yes-no questions. So without further ado, giving you guys 1 minute, can you please introduce yourself and the top priority you're bringing to Regional Council? We'll start with Tom James.
Hello. Oh man, that is intense. Anyway, hello, my name's Tom James. I am very happily running on the Labour ticket with Mr. Darren Ponta, who's the current chairperson. Unfortunately couldn't make it today. My top priorities at Council, certainly tackling the cost of living. We want to make public transport cheaper, faster, more reliable. It wasn't that long ago as a student, so I do remember how tough it is and the fact that, you have to borrow to live, which we don't expect of any other segment in society. So what I will say, my focus will certainly be bringing in a public transport fare cap where you take 8 trips in a week, and after that, the rest are free for that week. So I hope that will help people get to and from uni and maybe take some trips on the weekend.
Thank you.
Kia ora everyone, my name is Tom Kay. I'm an independent candidate. I have lived in Wellington for most of the last 10 years. I actually started studying at Victoria University when I first came here, but I finished my degree in environmental science in Palmerston North at Massey. I also have a master's in ecology, so a big priority for me is environmental protection of our drinking water sources, our rivers, our streams, and climate action, including things like public transport. I'm 31, I live down in Aro Valley. I'm a renter, I have flatmates. I hopefully fit into the general kind of, I can relate to the struggles of being a student in Wellington. And yeah, that's me.
Kia ora koutou katoa. My name is Henry Peach. I'm running on the Green Party ticket with the great Yadana Soa. I first came to Wellington when I was 19 to study here at Vic. And for the last 15 years, I've been working on climate change in the public service, decarbonising or trying to decarbonise some of our biggest emitting sectors like transport and agriculture. And I've also worked in Parliament for 5 years as the Transport and Climate Advisor to the Green Party. I'm standing for Regional Council in part because it often flies under the radar, but it's a council that can have a real material impact on our environment and on our just like daily life in the city. If we have the right people on Regional Council, we have the power to make this city more affordable, make housing more affordable, make public transport more affordable. We can take action on climate change by decarbonising our transport system. Does that mean I'm done? Yeah. And I'm done.
We do have the power to mute mics.
All right. Kia ora mai tātou, ko Yadana so tōku ingoa. I am your current local regional councillor and long-time hanger-outera at VUWSA, Salient, VBC. Spent way too much time here. And it's really lovely to be back. Alongside Henry, we're running together, and on top of that, we really care about our urban streams and urban waterways. So we're going to have a harbour that you can still swim in and collect kai in, and that's one of the biggest responsibilities that we have, is to make sure that we leave things cleaner and better than we found them. And I want to get better housing for y'all and affordable public transport.
Tēnā koutou katoa, my name's Sarah Free. I've been a city councillor for 12 years, deputy mayor for in the last triennium. I've always been passionate about transport choices. And the Regional Council does amazing things with public transport and our environment. But for me, it's about the bus system for Wellington. I know we need reliable trains, but we also need to not forget about our buses. And I will stand for affordable fares for youth, and I will stand for off-peak fares, and I will stand for anything that gives us a connected bus network right throughout the city so that we don't need to have cars in every household. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. One thing I forgot to mention is that at the end, we will be doing your questions, and you can scan this QR code here to have your questions submitted. Next up, candidates, what do you see as the most important role of Regional Council in the lives of Wellingtonians? And I guess we're just starting, you're at first, Tom.
Sure. Oh, there we go. Like, as a public transport nerd, love a train. Buses are very good as well. Love to see some modern trams here one day. I'd have to say public transport. Your regional council plans and co-delivers with the delightful private sector your public transport network, which is incredibly important for people getting around. I mainly get around on the bus. Number one is the one that I get the most. So the regional council has a massive role in things like, you know, how frequent your services are, how much they cost, and where they go. So I would certainly say that is the biggest function of regional council.
Public transport is definitely important, but I'm going to do a plug for water. Clean, safe drinking water is something that every human relies on, and the Regional Council is responsible for providing that to us in Wellington. So our water comes from Upper Hutt in Kaitoki Regional Park, and for me it's a massive priority that we protect our drinking water sources, protect our groundwater, our rivers, our streams, because ultimately we all rely on that for life. I've worked in freshwater advocacy for the conservation charity Forest and Bird, so that's a huge priority for me.
My biggest priority on Regional Council would be public transport. So the Regional Council has the power to make public transport more affordable, to make it faster, more reliable, more frequent. So our plan is to cap fares at $40 a week, so after that you wouldn't pay anything else. And we also want to do more bus lanes in the city so that your bus is like significantly faster, turns up more often, and is always on time.
It's kind of difficult to choose a favourite when the Regional Council is responsible for public transport, your emergency management, all the flood protection in the region, our harbour master functions, our coastal marine environment. It's also the environmental regulator for land, air and water quality. It's also the agency that gives effect to government direction as to what we can use land for. So we're also responsible for old contaminated landfill sites, which have a massive impact on our waterways as well. So those are all the things we're in charge of.
So the Regional Council does have this incredibly important role as a regulator around our environment, and of course we do want the environment to be good for 7 generations, as is the Maori way, rather than the short-term thinking we've had. But I do have to pick public transport. Now, mention of bus lanes and bus priority, that's the City Council's job, and I've been actually involved in that for years. But we do need that integration between the City Council and the Regional Council, and that's something I'm very keen to see strengthened so that we can make the most of what we're both delivering to get a really superb, reliable and affordable public transport system.
Thank you, candidates. We're now going to use these beautiful cards VUWSA has made. These are yes/no questions or I/COW questions. So, should Greater Wellington Regional Council focus more on core services rather than expanding its responsibilities? Oh. Should Regional Council focus more on core services rather than expanding its responsibilities?
Depends. What are the core services?
I guess public transport, water, flood protection, as you mentioned. The other question we've got here is, do you support reducing the number of regional councillors?
I'll answer that. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. We can give Sarah the chance to answer that.
But I was going to give a wordy answer, sorry. I was going to say that I think this is a question about amalgamation. And yes, I think there is duplication in some ways between territorial authorities and the regional council. So I do support some kind of rationalisation of what's going on. I'm not sure that equates exactly to a yes/no.
Thank you. Moving on to public transport. Metlink is the most visible service that Regional Council provides. What would you do to improve the reliability and affordability of buses and trains? Yeah.
Do you want to start at the other end?
Yeah, sure. Let's start at the other end.
Okay. Can you just, sorry, reliability and affordability of buses and trains?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm worried that the Regional Council has had a big cutback in its funding from government, $134-ish million. I'm also concerned that the trains need a lot of money. So I think we do need to focus on reliability of the current train services rather than expanding the train services. And I really don't want us to lose sight of our Wellington bus network and the fact that that needs to do the heavy lifting for Wellington City. So I would make sure that there's enough money for the bus service, and I would look at youth discounts, off-peak fares, better weekend services, and just getting more people to use it so that we're getting the patronage spread across, and that will keep it a little bit more affordable.
I think the key to affordability and reliability when we've had funding cuts and we don't really want to put up fares, the government wanted us to put up fares by 70%. We managed to put it up by 2.2%, which is still not great in this current economic environment. The best thing we can do is work with local councils who are in charge of the roads to get bus priority lanes in, to get buses to be able to traffic jump and to get smoother bus stops for the buses to enter in and out of traffic. Those are really cheap, easy solutions to get more frequent, faster services.
So I reckon like affordability is probably the biggest challenge our city faces. Like it is probably the biggest barrier to keeping all you people here in the city. It's the cost of housing, it's the cost of transport. Both councils can do something about that. The city council can enable more housings to be built, and the regional council can cap fares so that our public transport system is at least somewhat affordable for people who live here. So that would be my priority.
Yep, I agree. I'd like to see fare caps on the buses, both daily and weekly, ideally, so that you're not spending too much on public transport. And I'd be doing a lot of advocacy to central government to try and get some of that funding back, and crossing my fingers for a change in government at the next election who would fund public transport better.
Yeah, exactly. The main problem is that central government decided to bring in a policy, which they didn't campaign on, of forcing regional councils to raise fares, and as we've heard from Yadana, they've actually done some good job at pushing back, but we do know that we have to go further, which is why we're all advocating for fare caps. And of course, if you're like me and Darren, then we will continue to push back against any central government directives to continue raising fares, because that's just nuts in a cost of living crisis.
I might ask a follow-up question on that, and that how much power does regional council have to push back against central government directives on fare hikes and that sort of stuff?
I mean, a decent amount, I think. I mean, it is generally up to the regional council to set fares, so we can. The problem is, of course, central government co-funds public transport to the tune of 51% versus the regional council's 49%. So it can potentially cost basically double the regional council if we do pushback, but it is worth looking at seeing and what we can do and pulling every lever to make sure that we can make public transport as affordable as possible.
So our current chair, Darren Ponta, isn't here, and never underestimate the power of a really, really well-written letter. And this is Darren's magic ability. I don't think he uses AI. It's that ability to have a good relationship with central government and to understand how that system works. So in this term, we've been able to get additional funding to upgrade the rail network. So Regional Council looks after the train sets. We have an operator that runs the network, and then the rail is actually, the tracks are owned by Kiwi Rail. We needed funding for Kiwi Rail. Well, Kiwi Rail needed funding to upgrade their tracks and do their maintenance. And it was through Darren's lobbying and that relationship that we were able to get extra funding for that. So that's how we can influence central government.
Thank you. We have some more yes/no cards questions. Raza, do you support free public transport for under 25s? Nice, unanimous. Keep them up. Would you support free weekend public transport across the entire region? Cool. And do you support greater investment in rail compared to the bus services?
Did you say compared to roads?
The bus services, but also compared to roads, if you want to answer that. Yeah.
Henry has a very good answer on
We'd
this.
like to amend the question.
We have a sternly worded letter we'd like to give you.
Oh, go for it.
Investment in public transport compared to roads. Like the government spends so much money on actually quite low value motorways around the country. Like they're currently planning to spend $2.2 billion just to bypass Levin. Like, I understand wanting to bypass Levin, but $2.2 billion, hey, I'm sorry if anyone's from there. $2.2 billion is a huge, huge amount, particularly when the government has cut, I think it was about $140 million of public transport projects around our region because they couldn't afford to do it. We absolutely can afford to invest in much better public transport. It just needs to be a priority for the Regional Council and for the government, and we need to advocate for that.
We are going to get services cut and fares are going to go up unless the Regional Council gets more funding or makes some different decisions. So I do think we need the Regional Council, if I'm lucky enough to be elected, I will be looking for where there's perhaps areas that can be trimmed back so that we don't have to sacrifice our public services, transport services.
I wish you luck, Sarah, because we have been doing that.
I know.
So if you can find something that we haven't, I wish you luck. What I will also say about roads is that there's this thing called aggregate, right? That's the rocks we quarry out of like Papatuanuku. There's actually not enough rock in this country to build all the roads of national significance and maintain our current road network and maybe build all the houses we would like as well. But we do have a rail network that could do with that investment that would move freight and people all around the motu and probably would leave us with a little more aggregate.
I agree.
Well, I mean, moving on to the environment, Regional Council manages the rivers, the parks, and our biodiversity. How would you strengthen climate resilience and our environmental protections? Do we start, Sarah, again?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm aware of the fact that at Moa Point we regularly have sewage outflows that shouldn't happen under the resource consent. So I do think that there's a place for us to, if the Regional Council to actually enforce that more strongly and require councils to invest. Hopefully that will be done through some of the water planning that's going to take place in the future. Because I represent a coastal area currently, I'm really aware of the damage that's being done to our coast by outfalls and polluted streams.
I think we need a whole, to pick up Sarah's point of that 7-generation concept, it's about making the right the right decisions and the right investments now that aren't necessarily the popular short-term ones, you know, the ones where people want their rates low, but when you keep the rates low now, it's a problem we inherit and kick further down. So that's why we have our water network in the state that it's in. We have public transport and rail network the way that's in. But we actually do have the solutions. So it's about voting people in who will make those right decisions because we know what to do.
Yeah, so you guys will know that, like, regardless of the action that's taken on climate change, there's still going to be a lot of climate change in the next few decades that we have to act on. A lot of our exposure to risk comes from trying to constrain nature, to try and constrain where the rivers flow, to build up right against the shoreline with like expensive houses. So first of all, we need to stop doing that. We're around our rivers and around our beaches. And it also means that we need to like think about nature-based solutions to try and avoid that getting worse.
Yeah, so generally our approach to managing water in New Zealand has been to build stop banks, to bury our streams beneath our cities. There's many streams underneath Wellington that you might not know are there. The Hutt River is lined with stop banks the whole way down its extent. That means we have to continue to maintain those systems, and when they can't cope with bigger floods, they burst and our communities are impacted. So we need to back off in a lot of places. That will save us money because we don't have the consequence and we don't have the maintenance costs. So I'd be really keen on advocating to government for things like managed retreat and to use more nature-based solutions like making room for rivers, making space for water.
To continue the trend of violently agreeing with all of each other, yes, in regards to biodiversity in particular, I'd say we need to, as a regional council, continue to keep funding really good groups like Predator Free Wellington, who's doing excellent work. In addition, we also have to make sure that we continue doing all the planting of the native trees that we're doing, and make sure, even with government saying, maybe you don't have to have this level of environment protection, we need to keep our standards high.
I think this is a good chance to do our first audience question, and one of the questions we received here is, should regional council focus more on climate mitigation or adaptation?
Oh, me first? No, okay.
Who wants to jump in?
That's a really tough question. I mean, we do have to do everything we can to try and allay the climate emergency, which is quickly coming down the track, and that does mean things like making sure that we're working with regional council, central government, make sure we're growing in the right places, we have those mitigations. But I mean, the reality is that we are a small part of the system, so we do have to also do climate adaptation because these big weather events are coming, whether we like them or not, which is why we have to get things like the water system right and continue with our environmental protections. So, sorry, it's tough to say one or the other, so I'm going to cheat and say both.
Yeah, I think probably to be frank, the priority needs to be keeping our communities safe and adapting rapidly to the impacts that we know are going to hit. But I think we have a moral obligation to do something to minimise our contribution to climate change as much as we can. So if I had to choose, it would probably be on adaptation, but I think it's a cop-out to say that we shouldn't reduce our emissions.
So I'm going to just reframe what climate mitigation really is. Like, it's not just doing things purely for the climate. It's a choice about how we develop as a city, and we always have to make that choice. Like, we can either develop in a really emissions-intensive way by sprawling outwards, by building big motorways, or we can develop in a climate-friendly way by building close to the city so that people don't have to drive everywhere, by investing in better public transport rather than big, expensive, and carbon-intensive highways. So it's a simple choice.
In terms of adaptation, I think every dollar that's spent in adaptation and being prepared saves $6 in recovery. So there's an economic argument to doing the right thing. It's not always, it works for some people, that economic argument, but doing the things now is the most important thing that we can do. I just want to alert people that we have a regional adaptation plan, we have a future development strategy. These are big 30-year documents that lay out everything of where we should build, how we should build, where our amenities should be, what our public transport network should look like. It's all there. It's just a question of having the bravery to do it.
It's almost impossible to choose one over the other because you can't neglect either. The city councils and territorial authorities are actually doing a lot of the stormwater protection and a lot of slope resilience, but the regional council does cope with the floods that occur through rivers. But I still think that the regional council needs to focus on mitigation in terms of providing the most excellent public transport that they can, so that more people can do without a car, or at the very most have a car share or one car. That attention to detail will be the biggest thing we can do, because 57% of Wellington's emissions come from transport.
And so an additional question is, should regional council be prioritising climate adaptation over other services? Should regional council be prioritising climate adaptation over other services?
I
Yep.
basically answered that,
Okay.
I think. And
Yeah,
the
I think
answer was no.
Yeah. I think as soon as you start prioritising certain functions over others, you neglect others. So the idea that you could do climate adaptation over everything else means we're not fulfilling our other functions that we need to do. We're responsible for bulk water supply, so that stuff that comes out of your tap, that's all regional council for now. We're in charge of your emergency management. If you're doing adaptation, then you're not looking at public transport. You're not looking at all the other tasks that we're responsible for. I think the way to look at it is to build it into everything that we do, and that comes across in some of our, the papers that we read have all these sections that tell us about the different impacts. So it's about having councillors that really interrogate those sections, that we know the interactions between all the decisions that we're making.
Yeah, like climate adaptation or climate change affects everything that the regional council does almost. Like we are going to have to think about how we collect water differently, because climate change is going to mean there's either too much or too little in different parts of the region. It's going to affect our planning function, because that relates to where housing is built and the danger that that's exposed to. So it's not really an either or. It has to be part of everything we do and everything we think about.
Yeah, I agree with Henry. I think his answer before was really good, that basically you don't have to call one thing climate adaptation. You know, making room for our rivers can help ensure that our rivers are able to recharge the groundwater beneath them, which then provides the drinking water which we provide to the city. So doing one thing for adaptation, like restoring a wetland, can also be carbon sequestration. So I think looking for those co-benefits, for want of a less buzzy managerial word, is the way to go.
Yeah, I agree.
We've got an iCal question here. Cards. Do you support expanding regional funding for pest control and biodiversity projects? Hell yeah. Water and infrastructure. So with a new water entity being established, what role should regional council play in ensuring reliable, safe and affordable water services for Wellington? Do you want to kick us off, Tom?
Sure, yeah. I mean, the thing is that we've been lumped with this model by the government, where they're trying to keep politicians out of it, but we do have to continue to work to hold the water entity to account through various means. I'd certainly love to see the Commerce Commission come in and make sure that we get appropriate pricing straight from the get-go, as well as we have to set expectations through making sure we've got good letter of expectations, saying that yes, we want you, the entity, to actually deliver affordable, high-quality drinking water, and actually having the people's voice in there as well through a consumers charter and hopefully also a consumer advocacy group, to actually make sure that it's not just all corporate people deciding things, that is actually people are hearing from the community about what they want to see.
I think the argument that we've had politically over water and water delivery over the last couple of years has been painful and unnecessary, and has been a distraction from one of the problems that we have in Aotearoa, which is not prioritising fresh water as kind of the foundation of our society and economy. So I think the Regional Council does have a lot of responsibilities around how Metro Water works, but I think we should also really focus on prioritising the protection of our water at its source, protecting the health of our rivers and streams. As long as they are of high quality, then we have to spend less on treating that water. So I think we need to prioritise that.
So yeah, so the government's like set up this new agency that's at arm's length from councils to control our water and to fund it and to charge all of you for it. So we actually don't have much power to influence it realistically. So I agree with Tom. We should focus on fresh water, long neglected.
Oh, no, I'm going to give you the boring, real answer, which is Regional Council is also the environmental regulator. So, but right now we have a government who wants to get rid of regional councils and is also completely gutting the Resource Management Act. So I actually don't know what the Regional Council is going to do. But while we have one, I'll promise you that myself and the people who will be around that table will make sure that we try and set an entity up that speaks to Tom's point, which is that we're doomed if we don't see water and as its intrinsic value, that we don't see the mana of the why, because we are why. And I don't understand how we can't set up our institutions with that principle first and foremost.
I think everybody has actually said a really good, given a really good response here, and I really agree with everybody, which is nice. We will not have as much power in this new entity as we did. And so we need to make sure we've got our consumer advocacy groups, that we've got our oversight committee, and that we have a sort of proportional representation for councils alongside the assets that they've actually got at risk and that they are owning in this new entity. At the end of the day, people can rise up. If it's not working, we can rise up. We can change the government, we can do things. But at the moment, as Yadana said, it's all a bit unknown.
Cool. Moving on to the economy. VUWSA has run the Where's the Work campaign, which revealed that young people are struggling to find meaningful and paid work. What role should Regional Council play in supporting a fairer and more sustainable job economy in the Wellington region? Yadana, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I just want to note a couple of things. One, when I was here at VUWSA, student debt was nationally $3 billion, and now we're up to about 16 point something. I'm going to be 50 when I pay my student loan off. So I don't know what's going to happen for all of you. And I think that really changes the entire sort of context you work in of where you find jobs, where are you going to live, the choices that you make in terms of having families, what are you going to volunteer and participate in. It's not answering what the Regional Council is going to do, but it does have a bearing in funding our economic development agency. I think it's thinking about where work will be in the future. So for example, who's going to drive our buses if no one's getting driver licenses? You know, maybe driving a bus, driving a train is a climate-friendly job. It is a climate-positive job. So I think the Regional Council has a big responsibility in how we frame the future of work.
I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the government's kind of done this thing called austerity in Wellington, where they've cut a lot of funding for housing, for transport, for jobs, and that's had a really shit effect on the city and our economy and opportunity here. I think at this election, just to go a bit more meta, there is a group of people that think the solution to Wellington's woes is more of that. It's more cutting spending, lowering rates to unsustainable levels. That's not what we're about. If you want to sustain services, you want to sustain jobs in the city, you can probably vote for any of us, but you also do need to vote for us.
I'll take it even more meta if you want. I think the economic system that we have is broken. It's very badly broken. We have a system that relies on the exploitation of the environment. Everything on all indicators tends to be getting worse. So I think something has to crack eventually. I don't know what the Regional Council can do to fix that itself, but I'm happy to be part of those conversations. There are small things we can do, and the Council has just done, like being a living wage employer. Things that move towards movements to try and change the system, trying to be more circular, for want of a less greenwashy type term, but yeah, I think we have problems.
Man, a little critique of capitalism in there. That's great. We are back at uni.
I probably
This is
won't
awesome.
get elected, or maybe in this forum I will.
He's back on campus.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. So I mean, the main thing we can do as regional councillors is just try and make our city more vibrant and affordable, and that means, of course, working with City Council to try and get more houses and affordable housing built as well. I was very lucky to be able to buy my own home a couple of years ago, but it was only through the very nice Kiwi Build program, and I got a little apartment, so we do need to build more apartments and work with City Council, make sure we got the growth setting right, as well as do things like just make public transport more affordable.
I think a lot of it has to do with how we plan our cities, and that's why we need a compact city with a dense population that can actually spin off each other and innovate and create that kind of environment where Wellington's strengths in innovation and tech will really come to the fore. And for that, we need a decent public transport system. That's really the contribution of the Regional Council, that and regional planning. And also the Regional Council does contribute to the Wellington NZ, which is our regional economic development agency. And working, as you so aptly said, with territorial authorities to see where the synergies are, how you can work with district councils to help them, and
Yep.
city councils. You already started.
Actually, you know what? It's actually not the regional council's job. It's actually all of us as a community. It's all of us who live here. And we all have the ability to make the city and the community that we want. And sometimes it isn't about waiting for councils to do it or councillors to do it. It's about finding the like-minded people in our communities and making the things that we want happen. Because if this government's going to keep doing what it's doing to us, we'll just get on and sort it out amongst ourselves. So I think waiting for someone to come and do things to us when we can just sort ourselves out is the actual solution.
Regional Council currently does not have a graduate program. Is that something you would be interested in looking into? I mean, yeah, let's do cards. I thought it was a more complex question, but if it's not,
It's not.
yeah. All right, easy. Keep the cards. Should Regional Council invest in more green jobs as part of its climate strategy? There we go. We're now at audience questions, and if anyone would like to raise their hand at some point or submit one up there, that's all good. We'll start with one that's been submitted, which is, you all seem quite unanimous in what you believe. How would you work with the other unitary bodies that you have to, that may not agree, that may not necessarily be aligned with your views? Henry?
So actually both Tom and I had jobs previously working in as ministerial advisors, which meant that we had to work in a coalition, well, I had to work in a coalition with Labour and New Zealand First. So I'm used to negotiating, it's probably more New Zealand First, with people with pretty different views. I think it's just about like respecting people from where they're coming from. Like no one's really out to do bad, they just have different priorities. And it's about respecting that and trying to find some common grounds, build consensus, build relationships, and you can get stuff done with most people.
It's like a group project. There's always someone who's way ahead, super organised, doing all the work, and then there's the other one where you go, where have they gone? Did you do the readings? Like, and then you're going to like mark us all on our performance. No, I think it is about relationships, and the great thing about our region is if you stick around long enough, you'll get to know people, and like Henry says, it's about respect, it's about understanding where people are coming from, and giving each other the space to come to that shared understanding. Doesn't make for fast decisions, but eventually if you get everyone along, you might get a good decision.
It is interesting I think the first thing is you have to understand what each person's legal role actually is and what power they actually have. And then there's a lot of kind of consensus building and negotiation about who's going to do what, who's going to pay for it. Sometimes it can be a bit fraught, but as Yadana said, you've got to hang in there and you will get a good result. Our iwi reps have been really crucial. They are quite a unifying force because they do think big picture, they do think for the future, and they think beyond the immediate political tensions to what's actually good for the planet and our region and our people.
I'd also just say that if you want, we've all been discussing good progressive change here, but you guys have the power to change our city council so it is more progressive. So I'd certainly encourage you to have a look at the candidates, and if I could just plug Afnan, who's standing in the Lambton ward, if you live around here. Yeah, I think it would be great, and so that we can really work together if we've got a shared vision.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add, except for vote for like-minded candidates. That'll make our jobs easier across both city and regional council. And then similarly to Henry, I come from that world of advocacy, actually standing on the outside and trying to tell councillors to do things, and then getting thrown into a room in environment court mediation or whatever, and told that you've got to sort it out as best you can before you're allowed to take it to court or anything like that. So I'm used to compromise and being pragmatic and trying to be reasonable and trying to look at values and outcomes. But it will be hard at times, and that's kind of what we're putting our hands up for.
Another audience question we've got here is, as an Indigenous person who has been displaced by a large climate disaster, how will you ensure our communities in lower economic areas will be protected?
So this is a historic issue where we've always pushed out our people of colour, our Indigenous populations who already knew how to live on the whenua and how to live with the rhythms of what was happening in Te Taiao. So I think, the colonial constructs and the institutions that have displaced them have a massive responsibility to protect them for where people have been pushed out to. And how we approach that is having more mana whenua input in the design and our decision making, of making sure we have responses that are appropriate. If I take it to the far end, it's emergency management, where iwi need to be sufficiently funded and resourced because they are the most integral part of any emergency management response. Ake, ake, ake. So it's time to give them the pūtea and the decision making and the planning.
So after the Christchurch earthquake, a big takeout was that communities had to be resourced to help their own communities. Because you can't necessarily rely on a centralised approach after something really bad's happened. So strengthening communities, giving them a voice, but trying to make sure that no one's left behind, no community's left behind, struggling on their own. And there are some, we saw it in Hawke's Bay, how marginalised some people actually are and how vulnerable they are. So there needs to be a lot of thought given to where there are vulnerabilities.
I'd also just say to that person, I'm sorry, that sounds like you've had a really awful time, and again, going to continue our grand tradition of violently agreeing with each other. Basically, yeah, totally agree. As well as just, yeah, please elect people who actually keep this in their minds and have that equity lens when they're making decisions. And, you've got some good choices up here currently, I would say.
Yeah, likewise, that sounds terrible, and I don't know that we'll ever be able to do enough to address some of those problems where they have occurred and will likely keep occurring. I think we need to be really proactive in how we do things like planned relocation and managed retreat going forward. In many places that'll be a hard discussion because often, marae and iwi have been relocated in the past, and being asked to move out of somewhere they were pushed to is extremely challenging again. So there's some cool models coming out of other regions like Gisborne and Northland for them to lead those conversations about how they want to adapt and things like that. So I think we could learn a lot from that.
I'll just say, so climate adaptation is going to be the responsibility of regional councils, and it's going to be quite a big responsibility because central government is not doing much in this area. Like, their approach to it is to leave it to individuals. Some rugged individualism, you just survive on your own. So, yeah, and I think in our approach, we need to take an equity lens. We need to make sure that where we are dishing out resources for adaptation, it goes to those most in need. And we need to make sure that mana whenua have a really big seat at the table to drive the direction of that adaptation planning.
Get your cards ready. Is public transport a human right? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll keep the cards. Are you in favour of retaining Māori wards? Nice.
Yes, please vote to keep Māori wards.
Yes.
Twice. You have to vote for both councils.
We've had some tough questions here, so I've got one here that I really like. What's your favourite railway station on the Wellington network?
I mean, I just have to say the Wellington station itself is just So beautiful. You have so many trains there. You can go to the end of the platform, have a look at the whole yard, and I'm nerding out too much. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with Tom, but for the sake of changing tack, there's one at the bottom of Nodanga Gorge that's, and this is not, it always fascinates me because I've never got off, but it sort of looks very concrete and grim and like it's from a thriller. And I've always wanted to get off there to see what it's like. Maybe it needs improvements.
I mean, I live in Newtown, so I don't get to take the train very much, which is sad for me. To be different, Paikakariki station's pretty cute. It's pretty like, it's an old-timey station. I like that.
I'm going to shout out to Ipuni Station because it's quite good if you're going on the counter peak with your bike, and there is a mean Indian snack shop, and they do a really cheap, good samosa. So that's my reward at getting off at Ipuni.
I'm going to have to go for Wellington Station. It's actually really iconic. And I love the way that there's just so many trains coming from different directions and going different places. It's sort of like full of potential for me. Not that I take the train that often, but I do enjoy taking it when I do.
Talking about strengthening communities once more, what actions will you take on council to strengthen communities and protect them?
I'll jump in first.
Yep.
I think we should have, pulling on the whole economic system is broken thing, I think importantly, or as we move forward, adaptation is going to be more and more about community and connection and localized, transport and energy and all sorts of things like that. But I'd love to see more like citizens' assemblies used by councils to try and bring people together, educate us on issues, and make decisions together. I think that could be really good for community building.
So I think part of why we live in cities is because we probably like human connection. We like having people around us, we like having friends, and councils can have a big impact on how we experience our city, how we design our public spaces, whether we create spaces for cars or create spaces for people to hang out, to linger, to shop, to actually enjoy themselves. Makes a huge difference to whether you actually connect with your neighbors, whether you bump into your friends or not, whether you feel a connection to your city. So perhaps it's unsurprising, I support a city where there's more public space for people, there's a little fewer cars, better public transport, more cycling. That's, I think, a big part of making this city a nice place to live.
I think it's twofold. As a councillor, you get to make decisions like Henry's just spoken about. But I think it comes down a little bit more to the day-to-day of what councils do. And our way of inviting the public to participate or to consult in things is really, really difficult and inaccessible for most normal people. So, for example, we have this whole system of sending out documents to the public, and we can't write it in plain English because somehow that's going to get us judicially reviewed or in trouble or something, and it's almost unintelligible. So, let's go quickly finish this. One of the things I've done in my first term is go out to primary schools and get primary schools like year 4 to 6s to participate and put submissions in. They've come to present at council. I've done that in high schools, and I'd love to come up here and work with all of you tauira to have your voice in council because it makes a massive difference of how we choose to make our decisions, and we are answerable to you.
So I've got 2 answers here. I really like the idea of the fare caps, so the weekends could be free and people could actually get around the city to visit their mates. But also I want to give a shout out to the current regional council and all the community work that they're doing, like the community plantings, restoration, that you can probably think of some yourself where they're doing great things out in the outdoors, and that's incredibly bonding for people and also so positive.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I think we've been talking about strengthening and protecting communities generally throughout this entire time, and that's what the regional council's functions does, whether it's public transport, allowing people to get to where they need to go and meet people, or if it's about emergency management or about protecting, our biodiversity and our water. All those things are so incredibly important to actually having thriving communities.
We are coming up upon the hour. So with that in mind, we'll move to closing statements. Why should voters, and in particular students, trust you to represent them? Tom, do you want to start?
Sure. I mean, just going back to my opening statement, the fact that, I still remember what it's like to be a student, having to borrow to live, and I once even had to do a little medical trial just to get some money, just so I could finish off my post-grad, and that's super rough. Don't recommend that. So, with that in mind, I'll always have a focus on doing what we can to reduce the cost of living and actually working with our other councils to try and get more affordable housing and allowing actually people to create a more vibrant and affordable city that people will actually want to stay in after they graduate.
People should vote for me because I think it should be easy and cheap and affordable to get around the city, whether you're on a bus or a train or a ferry or you're walking or you're cycling. I think we should have safe drinking water. I think we should be safe from the impacts of climate change. I think we should be able to enjoy the harbour and our beaches and our regional parks. And I understand all of those things. Having studied environmental science and ecology, I understand how fundamental that is to our well-being and our society, and how much of an existential risk there is to those things. So if you want to protect those things, you want to protect our futures, please vote Tom Kay.
Okay, so my name is Henry Peach. I'm one of the Green Party candidates running for Regional Council. My background is in climate change for like the last 15 years. If I'm on council, my priorities will be climate action. It'll be making housing and public transport more affordable, and making sure that our beaches, our harbour are all safe to swim in into the future. It's important to know that there are 5 seats that you can vote for on the Regional Council, so you could vote us all in. There are other candidates who are not here, who are a little bit less progressive than us, so it's really important that you get out and vote. And you might know that the normal voter in Wellington is a lot older than you. They're homeowners, they're landlords. They will be voting, but you can change what our council is like, what we do, if you get out and vote. So please, please vote.
The role of a councillor is to serve you, and that's all I do. And I'm seeking re-election for my second term. We've got living wage in, we've got funding to clean up Kaiwharawhara stream. I'm working on keeping our urban streams clean, building houses in the right places. So I'm already doing the mahi. And the only reason why I'm doing this mahi is so that one of you can one day come and take my seat. I'm not here forever. It's for all of us to be able to do this job. And so I take that responsibility really seriously, that I'm here on behalf of all of you. And it's absolutely crucial you pick up that piece of mail that comes in your letterbox next week, and you get it back in the ballot before the 8th of October. Your voice really, really matters, and you can make a difference.
So I know we're not here forever, and I'm a bit older than some people, but I've got children and grandchildren, and I've been young myself. I've got a track record of delivering. I've been responsible with others for delivering most of our cycleway infrastructure. It's been hard work, and I've stuck at it. And I'm really, really committed to making the changes that I've been talking about. I really care about young people. I can see that without some interventions, the future could be quite hard. And I want to do what I can through what the Regional Council can control to make your lives better in the city and build the city's future. I care deeply about the city and the region. Please vote for me, number 1. I'm not politically aligned, so I am relying on people to actually support me for who I am.
Hey, can I just make a PSA that's relevant to students? If you've moved flat in the last year and you haven't updated your enrolment details, you might find that your voting papers don't turn up to your house because they've gone to your old flat. You can still vote. You can go to like public libraries. There's probably some other places, but you can definitely go to public libraries, probably here, and vote in person, even if you haven't updated your enrolment details. So don't let the fact that your voting papers don't turn up be an excuse not to vote.
Thank you so much, candidates. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. Voting in elections starts very soon. Your ballot should be arriving on September 9th. Good, cool, September 9th. Post them, vote for them. Their job prospects are in your hands. And now, the raffle.